Hi. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Thank y'all so much for being online today. We have had kind of a huge interest in this webinar, so I'm so excited to get to bring you the content. If you don't know me already, I am Marilyn Maxwell, and I'll be facilitating the session today. As I mentioned a little earlier, we had about almost 500 registered for today. We've got a little over almost 200 now online. If you have any questions during the webinar, I will stop at certain intervals and ask for questions. It could get a little tricky for one person to handle the questions for several hundred people at once. If I don't get to your question, the next time I ask for questions, shoot it to me again in the chat. You are also more than welcome to email or call me at any time. I'm a full-time employee here at HAR. And so all my contact info is on the screen there for you. Again, if you would prefer or need to, I always say you don't know what you don't know. So you may not have a question for me today during this session, but you may later. So again, feel free to reach out, and thanks for being here. And yes, Xavier, perfect timing on your question right there. Literally the next thing I was going to say. So awesome timing. We are recording the session, and anyone who registered will receive an email directly from me afterward with a link to the recording. So you'll be able to go back and review it, even though you attended today. And I know it doesn't necessarily apply to you because you're here, but anyone who registered but wasn't able to attend will also get that link. So if you hear folks in your office saying, gosh, I wish I'd been there, just let them know the link will be posted and sent out, and they can watch it at any time too. It'll just be on our HAR YouTube channel. So it'll be available for anyone afterwards. All right, thank you so much again. All right, so let's get rocking and rolling here. Today we are talking about matrix auto emails, which you probably already know. Let's see if I can adjust this just a touch to get the glare off my glasses. Matrix auto emails are somewhat intuitively named. They automatically email a customer and client. So today we're going to create a search with some criteria in it that would be specific to that customer, consumer, client, whatever they are technically at that stage. We'll set up some different options. Timing, you can have it sent ASAP or once a day, several times a day, several times a week, whatever it is that works best for that particular consumer. You also have some choices after you save the search in how you get notified. You'll be blind carbon copied on the email by default. So you always have that email. Your email sends you a separate link. It's a little bit different than the link that the consumer gets because it sends you agent-centric information. It sends you a link where you can get into Matrix, whereas the consumer doesn't enter Matrix. They have a portal, it's called, a website just for them. So we'll turn on some different notifications, for you as well in this webinar. I'll show you where to do that, because you can also receive text messages when the consumer texts or emails, when the consumer makes some inputs or has some comments or categorizes the properties. You can receive instant emails and or texts on those. We'll cover all that in the webinar today. And then last but not least, managing the search after it's already saved. You can edit it, you can tweak it or edit it, you can delete it. You can have an unlimited number of searches and an unlimited number of people on that search. So if you have, or let me reword that. You can have an unlimited number of contacts, and you can have an unlimited number of searches, and then an unlimited number of searches on a contact. My mouth is already on Saturday instead of Friday. It's resting. So again, just kind of a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about today. We'll go through contacts, auto emails, and scheduling, concierge mode. This PowerPoint is also available to you guys if you'd like a copy of that. Again, we're doing the recording. That'll be sent, so you'll see the slides in that recording, but if you just separately want my PowerPoint, then that is just fine as well. All right, so we're going to go through this process. I'll leave this up here just briefly. Again, you create a search, save the search, attach it to someone, customize it before you do that if you'd like. You can turn on what's called concierge mode if you'd like, and then off it goes. All right. A couple of questions popping up here before we go on to the next screen. What happens if the consumer is working with multiple agents? They would potentially receive multiple auto emails. Again, it could be a customer, client, consumer, right? If it's just a consumer and they happen to have reached out to a couple of different agents, you ask me this and then you ask another agent that, they could potentially be getting emails from other agents and you don't necessarily know that. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes that's not so non-preferred, right? If they're in the very, very beginning stages of their search, then, you know, they may not yet have chosen an agent. It's not necessarily something malicious. All right, so let's move on into Matrix itself. So I've gone ahead and logged into Matrix already. Is the screen share will switch. There we go. So you should be seeing that Matrix screen already. If you're not familiar with how to log in to Matrix, if you're brand new to the system, that's okay. You would first go to har.com and then log in as a Realtor member. And then once you are on the dashboard page here, you could just simply hit this Enter Matrix MLS button. Nope, screen's paused. Sorry, it's still not sharing. Zoom's fun when it works. All right, so again, just go to har.com first, log in as a Realtor member, and then this Matrix MLS button that you can see now would be where you would click. All right, and that will take you to a page that looks something like this. My screen is going to be arranged slightly differently. My widgets are in a different order likely than yours are, and that's fine. There's other classes. If you take that Matrix Overview Part 1, they cover those widgets in Matrix 1 and 2, so you can learn a little bit more about those. Again, email me, ask me for it if you'd like a little more info. I'd be glad to do that for you guys. So the first step, you can actually do two different first steps. I always like to go straight to my settings and double check that I have my email signature set up and then begin the search. You could begin the search and do that process and then add your signature, edit your signature. But that's where I'm going to start, is just simply by going to my matrix, hover on my matrix, and then go to summary and then settings. And then my information in the upper left there. Kind of buried in there a little bit. So again, my matrix, summary, settings, and then my information. This is going to have your name, your phone numbers, your email address, stuff that you're typically used to having in the system. This is how we have you in our system. So it's important, if it's not reflecting the correct broker here, for instance, or if that's not the email that you prefer to use, that you reach out to our membership department and just let us know of those changes. The other fields you're able to change. If it's got a little checkbox off to the right-hand side, you're able to change that yourself. You are not able to change your email address in the system nor your company name. It's just part of our membership database. But the folks on the other end of member services at har.com or in the live chat and other places where you can reach membership can help you with that. Pardon me, I'm going to put a cough drop in, see if I can get this throat calm down just a little. Once you've made sure you have everything there that you would like, be sure to click save in the lower left corner. And then just so that you can see it, header and footer, CMA cover sheet, those are other options there. And then the last piece that I want to just quickly show you today is the email signature. It's of course your signature, much like you'd have in your other email program, your Gmail or Outlook or whatever else. So that's your name and brokerage firm name for sure. Those are required. And then you have phone numbers, emails, taglines, slogans, whatever it is that you typically would include in your signature. And then I like to just point out that you could put the two links for the information about brokerage services and consumer protection notice in there as well. If you don't want to put them there, that's fine. You are not required to do that, but it's a nicety to quote unquote present those forms by putting the links in the signature. That is another way where you can, another reason rather, to email me and ask me for the steps to put those links in there. If you don't, excuse me, already have the IABS and protection notice in your email signature and you want those links email me and ask me for the steps, and I will send that to you. I'm going to put my email into the chat here real quickly in case you missed it at the beginning while I had it up on the screen for a bit. So if you need that again, you've got it. All right, so all of that was in my matrix, summary, settings, and my information. And then you just simply follow the tabs across the top to edit that information. Again, make really sure that you click that save button if you do make changes on any of those tabs. All right, so moving on into searching for properties now. Again, there technically is, there are two different ways that you could start this. It doesn't matter really if you add the contact first or if you go into the search, save the search and choose the contact or add the contact later. Either method is fine. Some people prefer to go to the contact section here in my matrix and then just simply add a new person in the upper right. So if that's your preference, that's fine. I'm just going to go in a little bit different order. I'm going to do the search first and then add the contact from within the search. So looking at the search options, you have all the different property types, single family, townhome, high rise, whatever it might be. And then under each of those property types, you'll have quick or classic. There's nothing wrong with choosing either quick or classic. The quick just kind of condenses the screen, the data on the screen, whereas classic is spread out across the screen a little bit further. There are a few fields that are on the classic that are on the quick and vice versa. Again, whatever the criteria is that that consumer has specified. They want a home with 3 bedrooms and 2 baths and a unicorn in one of the bedrooms and gold-plated faucets or whatever it is. We don't have a field to search for unicorn, by the way, in Matrix, just FYI. You'll just fill in the blanks based on that consumer criteria. And again, this is the classic. On the far right column, you have your price, beds, bath, stories, pool. The center on both the quick and classic is typically geography type stuff. And then on the left column, again, you have more property subtypes and descriptions of the homes, the status and things like that. Looking quickly at the quick, again, it's just condensed a bit more. Aesthetically, it's a little different. Functionality wise, it is not. So everything pretty much that was in the right-hand column on the classic is now in this upper right box for property information. So stories, pool, beds, bath, etc. Pricing is here in the center, your status, your geography. So again, much like the same fields that we saw a moment ago, just arranged slightly differently. All right. And again, we're recording the session. Anybody who registered for this webinar will get a recording of the session. I only have an hour and a half to squeeze all of the good golden nuggets I'm trying to get out to you into the webinar. So I will go as quickly, concisely rather, and as slowly as I can through it just to make sure that we get it all in though. And then you'll be able to go back and watch that recording at any time, seeing that come up a couple of times in the chat. So no worries, you'll be able to go back and watch the recording at your leisure. All right, so let me just fill in some basic property info. Again, pretending that a client has requested certain characteristics in a home or something like that. I'll search by what it is they have asked me. In real life, I might be a little bit more specific than I'm going to be today. I'm just trying to teach you the functionality today as opposed to really actually working with the results. So we'll just put in some basic cookie cutter facts. So I'm going to put in the 400 to 500,000 price range, at least 3 beds or 3+ bedrooms, and at least 2 full baths, so 2+ full. And then I'm going to put in some geography here, again, just to narrow it down. I tend to use the area numbers. Back in the olden days when I first started, like 20 some years ago, there were not many other ways to search for property geographically. Here we have Geo Market area, subdivision. I would encourage you all to use the Geo Market area if you're fairly new and or just because you'll never, ever know all the subdivision names and city names and zip codes and things like that. So Geo Market is where I suggest you go, though all the others and any combination of all the others is just fine as well. The Geo Markets are more commonsensically named. So like Bel Air area, if you know where the city of Bel Air is, then you kind of know where that is. Braeswood Place is kind of over there in Meyerland. So if you are vaguely familiar with the different parts of Houston, Geo Market, I think, is really going to make a lot more sense to you and make it easier for you to choose. You do also have the options to search by map. You can click this title in the location information area, or you can go to the tab in the top right called map and be able to search by map there. All right. And I'll talk a little bit more about the mapping a bit later in the webinar, and we'll circle back around to the map options. All right, so 37 seems reasonable. I'll go ahead and work with those. You can, again, click results in the bottom left or top right. It doesn't matter which of the two you choose. The results are the results. So the first thing I'll notice is I have 37. There's 25 per page by default in Matrix. If you want to fit those all on one page, you certainly can by switching this little drop-down number from 25 to 50. That just changes it for the moment, so I can see all 37 at once. And again, do as I say, not as I do. You would want to read through these 37 painstakingly to make sure that they fit all the criteria and desires that you could of the consumer. So if they told you they want an open floor plan, look for those that have open floor plan. There's really no way to search for that easily. Or if they want a certain type of flooring or, you know, white kitchen cabinets or whatever it might be, there aren't ways to search for those things in Matrix. So you would have to look at pictures, read through the comments, remarks, and discern what would and wouldn't be a good comp. Once you've done that step, presuming I've painstakingly read through all these, pros and cons to the auto email now. What we're saving rather, is the criteria. We're not saving individual results. So it's fruitless to check boxes here in hopes of sending only those few properties. Initially, when we first do the search, it's going to save all that criteria, and then the default would send all 37 of these properties to my customer or client, unless I enabled something called Concierge Mode, which I alluded to earlier in the presentation. Concierge Mode does let me pick and choose which properties I want to send. So maybe this first one on Mayfair does not have that open floor plan they want. I don't need to release it and approve it and send it on to my client. I can make that choice in the next two steps from here. All right, so just know that's an option. Let's talk about some of the mapping as well before we leave this page. If you click again on the map tab here in the upper right, or back in criteria, you could have tapped on that map search link in that information area settings, information criteria. Let's just say, for argument's sake, in example's sake here today, they want to stay inside the loop. So if you'll notice, a handful of my listing results are outside the loop, right? If I take my Polygon tool, and that's this option here, about in the center of the screen, left of center in that row of icons toward the top of the map, click it once to pick up the tool, and then you're going to click and let go every time you need to change direction. So I'm just going to follow loop 610. And I'm a little OCD-ish, so I might spend more time than I need to following these curves and little swoops. The idea being, you can. If you are very, very, very finicky about how that shape turns out, like me, then you can spend lots of time making it as perfect as you'd like. Double click when you're done, or just meet up with the first point where you started. So now my total has dropped from 37 down to 27 because inside the loop was really important to them. So anything related to the map, north of this, south of that, inside the loop, outside the loop, avoid this area or that area. On a shape, you can click or hover rather on the red dot there, and exclude is an option. So let's say they wanted to live outside the loop. I simply click exclude and it picks up all of those listings I had before that fell outside loop 610. So again, lots of really good ways to use the mapping options. You're never going to know every subdivision, zip code, market area, geo market area. So again, this helps being able to draw, and that may be what your client asked for. So you want to be sure that you can, accomplish that. So from this map screen or from the results, it doesn't matter. The menu items at the bottom don't change at all from the map to the results page. I'm going to click on save and begin the auto email process. So again, presuming I've painstakingly read through and found, narrowed this as much as I could and found properties that are appropriate to the consumer that I'm working with. Save and then new auto email is what you're going to want to click on. And then you'll notice anything in yellow and matrix is required. So my person is required, and then the subject, it calls it, that's also the name of the search. So again, if you already had a contact in your contact list, you can just simply choose them from the drop down here. I'm going to create a new contact today, just so you can see that process. So if you click on create new contact, again, whatever is in yellow is required. So first name, last name, and an email address is all we need to put in at the most. You could go ahead and fill in a few other blanks. The contact list in Matrix, excuse me, is pretty utilitarian. Can't type in top. So not a lot of fields to fill in. Even if you click show all fields, there's notes, physical addresses, company names, things like that. All right. If and when I'm done, I can just click save and it'll add that person to my auto email. And then again, blind carbon copy yourself is a choice. I would encourage you to always make sure that's checked so that you know what went, when it got there. If they immediately respond and say, oh my gosh, see that third property, I think it's amazing. You don't want to go, I don't know what you're talking about. That's some automated thing I set up, right? That kind of burst the bubble a little bit. Wah, wah. Okay. Subject, again, is going to be the subject of the email the consumer gets, but it's also the name of the search. And I typically name it something fairly descriptive. You can see some of my other sample searches that I've done in the past. I tend to put the word homes in front of things, but you could put, 350 to 450 with a pool, unicorn on the third floor, whatever it is. That way the consumer realizes that you did hear them. They know that you got what they asked for, but also you know what you were doing it for. I mentioned earlier, you could have one consumer and several different searches attached to that consumer. Maybe you have an investor and he's just looking for a good deal. He doesn't mind what part of town it's in. So you could have a Kingwood search, a Clear Lake search, a Midtown, downtown, Edo, whatever it is. And they could all be named something slightly different so that when you get your copy of the email, you know which one was which. If you just call it search for Bob Jones, search for Bob Jones 2, search for Bob Jones 3, well, that's not going to be all that easy. And it doesn't seem all that impressive on the other end to a consumer, I would imagine. Hence of my own opinion in there. Let me pause here just a moment and look at the chat. I know I've seen a couple of things come up. And so I just want to address those real quickly. I assume you can add more than one contact. Sure. It only allows for 1, 2, and then a CC. So you can add more than one contact at a time, but it's only going to add, the most recent one as the one that the email is to. Again, you might want to go back to the contact list, Larry, and add a person or people first if you want to be able to do that. Pros and cons to having 2 different portals. Say there's a couple, a husband and a wife, or 2 business partners, 2 co-investors, whatever it is. Each person gets a unique link to the portal, it's called, which is a web page where the properties reside. And then they can categorize them, mark them as favorites, make some notes, things like that. If you send two separate people, 2 separate emails, they get 2 links to join the same, to join their own portal. So then you've got comments and remarks over there and hearts and things like that over here. And then you've got to track that. So again, my humble personal opinion is to put the second person as a CC. Just, draw straws, see who gets to be 2 and who gets to be CC, so that you have it go one portal, one link going to both people, and they can see what each other is doing online there. So if so-and-so makes a note, the other person can see it as well. Long answer to your question, Larry, but thank you for that question. I appreciate it. Can you show how you populated the email again from the saved list? Yes. So just this little drop down here, Bushra. pardon me if I'm not pronouncing it. I've got such Texas twang, I may not be pronouncing it correctly. But again, these are people that are already in my contact list. You may not have anybody in your contact list yet, and that's just fine. If you again go to hover on my matrix and then go into contacts and open it in a new tab here, the add button is in the upper right corner, and you can add people. You can manually. You can also import. So if you have an Excel list and Outlook, some database that you can pull out of your CRM, something like that. If it's a CSV file, you can import that contact list into Matrix as well as manually adding them. So if you click just right on the word add, it's a manual entry. If you click that little down arrow, you get the choice to import. All right, thank you guys so much for your questions there. When a client hearts listing in the portal, I don't get any notifications. That is a great point, Seda, and we are going to address that today because that's one of the most important features, I think, but one that hardly anybody knows about. I call it hiding in plain sight, so we'll get to that shortly. All right. So coming down a little further, subject, again, the name of the search, I typically would call it, like you saw earlier, homes with a pool, 350 to 450, whatever it is that is of interest to you. All right. So subject is, we'll call it property in Southwest Houston, OG, and it was 400 to 500,000. Again, call it whatever you'd like, as long as it makes good sense to you and your consumer, that's fine. There's no real requirement in terms of naming convention. And then we get down here where welcome email verbiage is. In my head, I hear this like the movie phone guy, if anybody remembers that, welcome to the portal, with the exclamation point and the quotes around it. The consumer likely doesn't care that really actually technically it's called the portal, but it's totally fine to use that verbiage. They're just not going to necessarily recognize that title. But what you're trying to convey in this message is, I just created this thing for you. Properties that meet your requirements or requests are going to live on this thing I just created, and here's how it works. So again, if you want to totally redo this text, that's fine. If you like what it says, that's fine. You do have the option to just manually type in here, tweak it just a touch, or start all over from scratch. One of the things that it says here is, and categorize them. It doesn't really explain how to categorize them. Again, a hint of my personal opinion here. It's a little unintuitive, if you will forgive my license of opinion there. It's got a heart. We all think of favorites, possibility. It's good. I like it in some way when we see that heart icon. The way the system works, the portal, when they receive that, it's got a heart, but when they click it, it gives them favorite, possibility, and discard. I think it's a little unintuitive or not intuitive to click a heart to discard something you don't like, but that's how it works. So again, you might want to craft this verbiage to kind of elaborate a little bit more on the and categorize verbiage that it has. If you do make any changes to this verbiage, you can click on the little gear in the lower right corner there, and then you can save that as your default. So you don't have to recreate that wheel every time and retype it. If you do type something here and don't save it, it's specific to this one client. So maybe this is my Aunt Betty, and I just wanted to say, love you, Aunt Betty. Thanks so much for choosing me over Cousin Joe, or whatever it might be. Don't save it as your default, just send it. And then Betty Buyer gets that verbiage just today, and your system default still says this kind of generic information. All right. Also on the salutation, if you'll notice, it says dear, first name, last name. I can change that as well with the little edit option. So if I click edit, salutation title could be Aunt or Ms. or whatever. Down here, you've got some choices. Hi, Betty. Hello, Betty. Dear Betty. Right. And then I can create a custom salutation. Howdy, Betty. Whatever it is you might want to do there. All right. And then coming on down a little further, the email signature that we went over at the very beginning of the session. If you want to create the signature or tweak the signature first, you certainly could. Again, as I mentioned earlier, though, you can edit the signature here as well. So if you didn't already check it out and see something that needs to be changed, you can always change it before you send it off to the consumer. And then continuing on down, criteria is just a review of what I used. My mapping, the bedroom bath count, the geography, the price is all I used. We're going to skip settings for a moment, go to schedule, and then I'll come right back to settings. All right. The default schedule is daily in the morning. So you can see here Sunday to Saturday AM. That comes out fairly early-ish in the morning. I always say 6-ish to 8-ish probably on average is when they come out. And they only go once a day. So if I have something new and new or changed, Betty Buyer got an email today, this morning, let's say at 8:30. If a new listing hits the market at 9 a.m., she does not know about that until Monday or the next day at 8 something in the morning or whatever time it actually comes, early-ish in the morning, right? So we're missing that whole day almost of opportunity to see that listing, make our offers, rule it out, because that's really important sometimes too, right? So just be mindful of that. But that might be relevant to the consumer. That may be all they want, right? Maybe they're just a lukewarm consumer, as I call them. They're a looky-loo. That may be possibly sometime soonish they'll really get serious about looking for property. Maybe once a day, a couple of times a day, once a week. Maybe they just want you to send them something on Mondays, and twice a day on Monday would work. Just uncheck what you don't want, leave checked what you do want, and choose AM or PM or any combination of that. Now, moving back up one to this ASAP, I personally think that might be likely more a stereotypical consumer situation. They want to know as soon as it comes on the market, and so do you, or when a price changes, right? So new listings, price changes, and status changes is what the portal or auto emails are notifying about. If you click on ASAP, it just is what it is. It's built into the system. About every 20 minutes or so, it'll check, run your search kind of in the background. If there's something new or changed, it sends an email. If there's nothing new or changed, it doesn't send one. It tries again in about another 20 minutes. If there's something new or changed, it sends an email, and so on throughout the day, all day, every day. The last option down here is once a month on the first of the month at midnight. Again, at first glance, that one may not feel like it's relevant or you'll ever use that. You can put yourself in as the client, quote unquote, right? So maybe once a month, you just get an email about your neighborhood. So you know what's going on in your own market around you, where you live, something like that. So there are occasions, again, where each of these scenarios is appropriate. Pick the right one that's appropriate to that particular customer client that you're working with, right? So let's move back up now to our settings. And so this contact in reverse prospecting is automatically checked by default. Again, you can uncheck anything that you don't want to use, leave checked what you do want to use. Reverse prospecting in a nutshell is when I saved this search, I had, 27 listings, right? Let's just pretend each of those listings has a separate listing agent, an individual listing agent on each one of those. So each of those agents get a notification that I saved a search that had their listing in my results. That's all it's doing. It's alerting another agent of an agent's search results and their listing being in that other agent's search. They don't know anything about your client. They don't know what criteria you used or anything like that. They're just being notified that their listing is a part of your search so they can then reach out to you. Maybe they can tell you that there's an open house coming up, or their seller is really motivated, or they're replacing the carpet. And it's going to be amazing, right? Whatever it is, it's agent to agent contact in an effort to kind of get the ball rolling on you with your buyer making offers and selling that listing, helping them sell that listing. Okay. Let me look at my chat here just a moment. Again, I see a couple of others going through. Hello, Nathan Goebel. Thank you for joining me today. Nathan is going to help facilitate chat for me, so I appreciate your jumping on.
A meeting that ran over by about half an hour. I'm sorry.
No worries. We're all good. We're just glad to see you. It's been a little quiet. I just told him I'd pause and take questions in intervals. So
Sure.
keep going. All right. Thanks. All right. So last option up here that I have already mentioned once, but we didn't go into in depth, enable concierge mode. So enable concierge is the sample I gave earlier. Maybe that client wants specific gray hardwood floors or white kitchen cabinets or open floor plan or whatever it might be. A question I've gotten fairly recently, more often than I've ever had it, was a mother-in-law suite, or I can't think of the other names for it, but that's a difficult one to search for in Matrix because there's not really a field for that. You just kind of have to hunt and peck through the remarks in some cases for words. Elevator, is it elevator ready? Does it have an elevator? Those kinds of things. So I need to do concierge mode potentially in that situation. It will email me first instead of the client. It never emails the client unless I approve something and actually send it out. So concierge mode sends me an email. I know to jump on the system, look and see, look at the pictures, read the remarks, make sure it has the features that the client would want, and then I can approve it and send it off to the client. I may get 27 in my email, but only 3 of those, let's say, would be the ones that I forwarded on to my client. They don't know about the other 20 some properties. They only know the 3 ones that really meet their criteria that I send on to them. Right. And last but not least is enable a favorite search on the home tab. Again, kind of going back to my other tab I had open, these are technically called widgets. And you've got one somewhere on that page likely called my favorite searches. You can have a max of 10. It could be a saved search or an auto email like we're doing today. It just allows you to click the name of the search and run the search and see the latest and greatest results to that search. The other way to access that is to hover on my matrix, click on auto emails or save searches, then click the name of this, click the icon, expand, click the results tab, and then see. So putting it as one of your top 10 saves you a couple of hovers, a hover and a couple of clicks. All right. Again, they go into more depth on some of these other extras in the Matrix Overview 1 and 2 classes. Sorry, I'm trying to read and talk again. Didn't work right. All right, so let's go ahead and just save with these options. Again, if I don't click concierge and hit save, it immediately emails all 27 that I got as a result. If I enable concierge, I get to pick and choose which ones I send off to the client in the next step. All right, so I'll go through the last steps of concierge. Again, it's much like the search results screen, but this is where you can check the box. Remember I said, let's pretend such and such was not one that I want to see, send them, then just simply don't check it. All right. So again, presuming that you click the ML number here, read through it painstakingly, look at the photos, double check that it's exactly everything they might ever want, and then just check the boxes by the ones that you did want to send. And then you would hit approve selected. I'm going to pause here a moment though. Let's say I've already shown them one of these and they hate it. It's never going to work. It's got a cell phone tower or railroad tracks or something right in the back, and that's just never going to be a thing that they would be interested in. If you check that one, there is an option for reject. Reject, you never hear about that property ever again. So be very careful in eliminating a potential result for your client based on maybe your knee-jerk reaction to it. Maybe you think this, that, or the other might not fit the bill for them, but in the end, we need to present it to them for them to make the decision, right? But if they have said that one on Timberside Circle, that cell phone tower, no thanks, right? Then we can reject. If you simply don't approve it, then you get notifications when the price goes down. Again, new listings changes. You get notified about it. You just simply don't have to approve it and pass it along to the client. Right? Again, presuming that we are done, we've painstakingly read through all of these things, I'll go ahead and approve those. Last but not least, on the screen, if you'll notice, it says never. It's a little hard to see unless I highlight it. I've never emailed any of these properties to this particular client before because I just created the client in the previous step. But had I emailed them manually or with some other auto email, then it would have the date that that had been emailed to them already. So you would know that you're about to duplicate that or that it is coming up in multiple searches and being sent to them or something like that. So it's a nice little handy, you already sent it to them, notification right on the screen. All right, really, let's approve those and send those off to my amazing client, Betty Buyer. All right. Let me check back here on my chats. All right, looks like most of those are related to managing. So now that I've done it, again, I got my copy in my email. I'm going to be sent a link that has a link to go to Matrix. So I'm going to see agent-centric things on my end. I'll see showing instructions, all sorts of things like that that we typically don't reveal to the consumer. Don't worry, the consumer got something different. All right. So let's head over to where this is saved and where we can manage it and work with it. Auto emails, hovering on my matrix and then going into auto emails will get us there. And then you'll see all of the amazing fake clients that I have set up amazing fake auto email searches for in there. They're alphabetized by last name. So I just simply need to look for B for buyer. And here's the one I just created. Kind of some elementary school color coding here. Green is go and red is stop. If it's got a little green circle, it is going to someone. If it's a red circle, it is not going to someone anymore. Two different ways that that may happen. Maybe I turned it off, or maybe there's three actually, or maybe the consumer opted out. When they get their email, it says, you know, Marilyn Maxwell wants you to look at these properties, whatever verbiage it was you created. And then there's always an unsubscribe option. If anyone chooses to opt out of these messages from you, you get an email to let you know. So I would know right away that Betty buyer has chosen to opt out of my messages. The open circle means it has gone, but they haven't opened it yet. They've not reacted, essentially. The green circle is they've opened it, they've accepted your invitation, maybe even made some remarks, things like that. They're interacting with what I've sent them. So green and filled in with a little check is the buyer is, or the consumer rather, is working back with you on that portal. And the green circle means you just sent it out. The system will eventually give up on sending those out. Again, I don't know Hanna-Barbera and Mario Andretti and Jackie Kennedy and all of those people. So they have never opened my emails. No big surprise there. So it will send me an email and say, just so you know, we're going to stop trying to send Daffy Duck stuff because he's never going to open it. Obviously, it is worded much more professionally than that, and you'll be aware of that. Maybe they need to just right now not do it. Let's say for whatever reason, we just need to pause this. I thought Betty thought she was going to get transferred. She thought she was going to get approved for a loan, whatever it was. But I just want to turn off the auto notifications for right now, but not delete it completely. So check the box on the far left of her search, and then down at the bottom, you can click disable. That just turns off the auto emails for now. You can come back in here, manually turn those on again whenever Betty's ready to go again. And then of course, delete is a choice. If you delete it, it's gone forever. There's nothing else that you can do with that search. You just have to recreate a search for Betty Spy. All right. And then the little icon next to that check mark. So I have a box to check or uncheck, and then a little square with a drop down arrow. That will expand the other things that we can do to manage the search. Settings would be your auto notification settings. So to tweak the verbiage on the emails, AM, PM, concierge or no concierge, all of those things fall under settings. Criteria is the property search criteria. So maybe Betty gets her email, calls me up and says, oh, you know what, totally forgot to tell you, I have to have a pool. I can just edit the criteria and go back and change it. Just be mindful when you change the criteria, it could potentially cancel out any properties that were results previously. I didn't mention a pool, it was irrelevant. So some of the properties that Betty got already may stay on her portal. But if she had originally said no way on a pool, and now she says yes to a pool, none of the homes that were on her portal a moment ago before I changed that criteria are there anymore because they're replaced by properties that are in the right price range in the correct geographic space and the pool. All right. All right. I can't not check the chat. Nathan's here to help with the chat. All right. The other options across the top there, results. I can click that and run the search and see the latest and greatest results to this criteria. Could be different than just a moment ago. I had 27 a minute ago. Maybe I have 32 now because a couple of new listings came on the market or something like that. Date since lets you run the search since you clicked results. An example of that, let's say I run the search right now by clicking results and I come back at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I may not necessarily want to see everything that meets the criteria. I just want to know what's different since 12:45 when I ran results. So it'll only show me what's different since I clicked results last. And then market update lets you choose a date range. So I could see what the results would have been a month ago, last week, whatever interval it is you choose. And then I'll skip open in portal briefly and come right back to it. Resend welcome email. Remember, welcome to the portal, or however you change that verbiage to make it appropriate or specific to your client. You can resend that if they go, oh, that's what that was. Yeah, I deleted that, or it's in my inbox somewhere. I can't find it. Can you send it again? You can do that here. And then another option to delete the auto email. Doesn't matter if you check the box and delete down here or click the link here, it's gone forever. It's deleted all together, right? Open in portal takes us to what the consumer would see. So I'll click there and we'll review that real quickly. So again, whatever number of properties it was, I only chose 6. Remember 21 total, but I only painstakingly chose those 6 that were really, really the best for them. And to the right of the price of each listing, you can see that little heart that I mentioned. Again, I believe my instinct is a heart is, I love it and it's amazing. But under heart, they have those 3 different categories: favorite, possibility, and discard. So again, I would suggest that you craft that verbiage to kind of make it make sense, right? Maybe they love this one, they'll consider this one, and this one, but they don't like this one, right? So now looking toward the top, there's a section called favorites. Again, maybe somewhat counterintuitively, if you click favorites, it really means categories. So the number of favorites, possibilities, and discarded properties are all there in their own individual little tab. So this is reminding me I loved Capri Lane. I'm considering the one on Braeswood and Durhill, the ones, and then I got rid of the one on Woodshire. They can undiscard, Matrix uses that word, it's not just me making up a crazy word. If you click the little trash can here, you can remove it from your discarded property. So maybe as the price goes down or they fix it up a little or whatever it might be, it becomes more appealing to the consumer. They have the ability to change their category or just take it out of the discarded properties altogether. And then again, you can do multiple searches for each person. So if this was that investor person, again, I could have Kingwood, Clear Lake, Midtown, Edo, whatever it is. And they could just simply click the name of the search and switch from one search to the other, right? Messages houses a copy of any emails that you've sent to them. So they have the option to, again, go back to different emails, click the link and open that search that way. And then a little bit about you in the last tab. We're going to circle back around to settings. I'll show you where you can set this up. We'll talk about notifications for you, and then I'll show you again how to delete if we need that. All right. Back to my matrix, kind of where we started. If you hover on my matrix, click on summary, click on settings. Earlier, we went into my information. That's where we found our email signature to customize. Start with checking your information on the first tab first, save any changes you might make. And then we just kind of jumped to email signature and manually type in or copy and paste your signature. Be sure again to click save. The last tab, the portal profile, is that page that I just showed you with my kind of giant picture, quite frankly, on it, back when I felt like a redhead. This is an additional page. You can turn on the portal greeting page if you want so that they can see a little more about you. Again, same as the others. If you want that particular thing enabled, check it. If you don't, just simply uncheck it. So in this portal greeting area, you could write out a little blurb about yourself, how the portal works, remind them of that heart thing, click the heart to get the categories, right? So it's just kind of an overview about you and the thing that you've created and sent to them. If you have any inventory in MLS, you can showcase that on that page as well. And then information from your firm can be highlighted there as well. Again, check in and check. It's pretty simple to use. And then if you have a profile video, hi, I'm Marilyn. I'm amazing. One of those cool videos that a lot of you now have. You need to have a YouTube link to paste in there. And of course, you give it a title and just add it in. And last but not least, your contact information, same as we did in the information tab on the first area here. Just verify it and pick and choose. Again, if you don't check these little circles, none of this is visible to a consumer. So do as you wish there. And then click save if you do have any of those that you want enabled and showing up on that client portal. All right. Last tidbit though, my matrix, summary, settings, and then portal notification settings. Back in earlier in the chat, there was somebody said that their client made a category, made some notes, whatever it was. They didn't get notified. It's not on by default, so we're going to go turn those on. This I think is a pretty crucial setting. So if you haven't done these on your own notifications already, you'll want to do it now. So my matrix summary settings, portal notification settings lets you pick and choose whether you want an email and or a text and or a daily summary. You can pick all three if you want. Visits portal. This is every time they click that link and open that portal. Do you want a text every single solitary time they click that link and open the portal? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you want an email, maybe you don't. Maybe at the end of the day, you want one email that says these 5 people opened their portal today. Maybe I had set up 10 and sent them out to different consumers, and I can see that only 5 reacted and entered and looked at their portal. Kind of good information to know, but I might not need a text right away when it happens. Again, this is your personal preference, totally up to you. I would probably want to know right away. Text works best for me, so I might check the box for text on favorites. Again, go down the list here and pick 1 or 2 or 3 or any combination of that that you want. Again, you can get them all the ways if that's what you want. And then down toward the bottom here, click here to edit your cellular information. If you've chose text on any of those options up here, you need to click that link, put your mobile phone number in there and choose your provider, and it'll send you a verification code. You have to give Matrix auto texting system permission to send you those auto texts. So just be sure that you approve that and put in the number with verification. And then save once you've made the choices that you want. That again is crucial to knowing what the consumer does once they get the portal notification. So they can log in and see it and make hearts and notes and things like that, but you may never know about it unless you have the notifications enabled. Right? And that is kind of it for setting up one kind of basic, simple cookie cutter default kind of auto notification. Somebody asked earlier if this was available through rentals, if it worked the same way. It absolutely does. Rentals, townhomes, high rise, whatever it might be. Let's say maybe this particular consumer isn't sure. Maybe they're going to rent, maybe they're going to buy. So I can just go into rental. Again, quick or classic is fine, whichever you're used to using or want most to use. Again, we'll put in just some generic information. Just for consistency's sake, I'm still going to pick area 17. Do as I say, not as I do. Again, likely you're going to want to gravitate toward Geo Market areas, zip codes, subdivision names, draw on the map, other things, again, that the consumer may have put in there for you or given to you rather. Put in a nice large price range, so I'm certain to get plenty. Well, all right, and 3 bedrooms at least and 2 full baths. All right, so here are my results. And again, I would go down to the Save tab toward the bottom, choose New Auto Email. Betty Buyer will now be available in my dropdown because I added her earlier. Again, you can add a new contact right here on the fly if you need to do that, or you could go to the contact section instead. And then it's just a matter of filling in the blank. Reword this if you want. One other thing that's important to note, which we did not talk about yet, is we did the welcome message, but there's a second recurring email set of verbiage. So welcome to the portal. Here's this thing I just made for you, and here's how it works. The initial email goes with as soon as you save it and or once you enable concierge and approve. From that point forward, they're going to get the verbiage that's in this recurring email. And again, use your personal preference here. I might think this is too short, so I want to flower it up a little, put in call me if you need help, let me know if you want me to schedule showings, use the heart, which means favorite possibility discard, right? Whatever it is that you want to do to reword that, if you want to reword, there's a separate gear here. So you've got a set of verbiage here which can be saved as the default by that here. And then the recurring email verbiage, which can also be saved by its little gear on that tab. Again, you can edit Betty Buyer's name, salutation, etc., like we did a little earlier. Email signature, concierge or no concierge, AM, PM, ASAP, reverse prospecting or not, all the same options that you had before. So it doesn't matter if it's a home for sale or rent, a townhome, a condo, a single family, whatever it might be, you just set it up exactly the same way. And now if we go back to managing our auto emails, we're going to see Betty Buyer's name twice. One with the first search we did together, one with this other search that we just created. All right. Hopefully that's all making sense to you guys. Mr. Global, do we have any questions that you're seeing an awful lot that might be good to answer live on the screen? Excuse me while I take a sip of coffee.
They're asking, I've seen several requesting is this being recorded and being distributed afterwards?
Yep. Again, as I mentioned a couple times toward the beginning, you may not have heard it then, but we are definitely recording it. It will be posted on our YouTube channel. Anyone who registered will get an email with that link in it. It usually takes a day or two. So in a couple days, you'll get a link from me, and it will have a link to the recording. So you can watch it again over and over and over.
Perfect. The other question is, I saw a couple about how to review the rejected ones after the fact, if they wanted to go back and maybe resurrect. I know that we've gotten calls before about agents, you know, they rejected it and then 90 days later they forgot they'd rejected it. And how do they go and see it again?
And actually, I might defer that to you. Is there a way that they can unreject it other than just going to the portal? That's the one way I know.
There looks like there's two ways.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
It's okay. The easiest way is actually when you get your next notification. I'm gonna like, okay. When you get your next notification, you would see the option that Marilyn showed you to approve or reject a listing in the concierge. If you've rejected a listing, there's an additional tab that appears there that'll say show rejected. And any of the ones that you've rejected will be visible there, and you can actually change them back over and approve them at any time so that they are never truly lost. They just are suppressed.
Awesome. Thank you, Nathan.
Mm-hmm. Going into a little bit of real time, unchecking reverse prospecting does mean that agents cannot reverse prospect that agent or that client. Now, there's two different ways to uncheck a reverse prospect. There is unchecking a reverse prospect for a search and unchecking a reverse prospect for the contact entirely. And if you uncheck the prospect, that opts out any searches you create for them ever. And if you only uncheck the search, then it's just that search that is opted out from reverse prospecting.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who do not know Nathan Goebel's name, he is the head of our quality assurance department, our project manager. I always call him the god of MLS, which makes him shy, makes him blush a little. If I need an answer, he's the person that knows it usually. So thank you very much for helping me out today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay. Well, if we don't have any other questions that are burning in our hearts related to the auto email specifically, I saw a couple of things coming up in the chat earlier about the mapping, questions about mapping and how to find different area numbers and what's where, what's called what. I'm just going to go back to my search where I was building the original search. We did a search by map. If you'll recall, I clicked the map tab and drew my polygon to keep it inside the loop. On that same toolbar of options and shapes across the top, there's this little icon that looks like a stack of papers, like layers. If you click there, you can turn on the different layers or enable the different layers, one of which is MLS area number, which is what I happen to resort to earlier. If I click that, it puts these little red lines. I'm going to try to zoom out on the map so you can see more map. but it'll make my letters kind of small. But if you'll notice, this is 22, this is 23, this is 31. Again, area 17 was what I used in my sample search. 4 is the other side of the loop, just about. Back in the day, like I said earlier, that's about all that's what I learned on. So they come very second nature to me. They mean nothing to you potentially because you have never seen them. The geo market areas are going to be more logical parts of town.
Just a brief background for those that may not know, the MLS area map was created back in the 70s and is hitting its 50th anniversary in this market. And many of those areas don't make sense logistically anymore as they used to. Like the area 17 that I think Marilyn was using was called Southwest. I don't think anyone thinks of Inside the Loop by Bel Air as being Southwest any longer. People think of Sugarland as Southwest, and the same thing right east to it is Area 4, which says South. And people think of Pearland when they think of South now. They don't think of Third Ward.
Yeah. And I'm not so old that I've been using it for 50 years, but I'm close.
Oh, I was broken in on it too.
Yeah. And if you'll notice, basically, yes, again, it's what was there. So it has evolved greatly. The little leg over here, this little boot off to the side, plus what I have, that's quote unquote 17 Southwest, like he was saying. And that is the southwest corner of that particular part of the loop for sure, but it's definitely not really Southwest Houston.
Which is why the names are gone. Now we just have numbers. They actually used to have names. Yep. We don't want to remember those.
Right. If we click on Geo Market, you get a couple of different Geo Markets that fall into my boundary. So I've got West University, I've got Rice Military, Medical Center area. I don't know that anybody's going to call you up and say, let me find a house in Katy Southwest, but there's Southwest, Southeast, Fort Bend County, Richmond. So it's going to, again, just give you a much more commonsensical name of that particular part of town. And I always like to do this when I teach the matrix classes. Look at the, I think gigundus, huge is the technical term for the size of our MLS coverage area. So anything that's color coded there is technically part of the HAR MLS coverage area. So you're never, again, going to know what all of those things potentially are called, and that's fine. That's what these map layers are there to help you do. You got to identify. Again, you have other options as well. You've got zip codes, city limits, key map numbers, if anybody even remembers a key map, but elementary, middle, and high school number boundaries. Same principle, it turned on the little boundary there, and if I double click and zoom in, some of these layers you have to be really far in, some you have to be kind of far out, some you have to be zoomed sort of in the middle somewhere. Excuse me, but if you'll notice here, it tells you the name of the school that homes within that boundary would be zoned to. Always do your due diligence and have your client double check that little Johnny's getting in the right school, that there's room, even though it may be currently zoned. That doesn't mean it's not going to stay zoned to that school. All of that stuff that you already know about schools. I'm going to go off on too much of a tangent on those since the focus of this particular webinar is only the auto email, but I think the mapping, search by map options are going to be really, really helpful for you guys. And I just, last but not least, used the Polygon earlier. It's my go-to. I think that's the one that I use the most, just simply because I can very diligently change directions and have control over that. The freehand Polygon makes it, I call it the squiggly Polygon. I always have a little.
It's for your artists.
Yeah.
Mine look terrible.
You can make it a little octopus and look in that shape, or an elephant, whatever you see in that shape, right? So it just lets you do a more fluid drawing of a shape than a straight edged turn in that Polygon. Squares or rectangles, or squares are rectangle-ish. And then last but not least, the circle lets you do a radius. So if, again, just for example's sake, somebody said they wanted to live within 3 miles of this thing right there that's really important to them, you can click once to pick up the circle, click and hold and drag your mouse out, and you can get them within 2, 5, 12, whatever it is. 25 is the max, but that's too big. You're going to need to have a lot more other criteria to narrow it down. So any shape or shapes that you draw on the map is working in conjunction with the text criteria that you put in there earlier. So the price, the beds, the bath, I have nothing in the circle because I had already put area 17 over here in the criteria. So if you want to do shapes, you may want to delete the options in the criteria or geography area that you selected, but you may want that to be narrowed down by having geography mentioned here and something on the map as well.
Go back to the map real quick and zoom out to where you're like at the city level or higher, almost like the default that the system normally gives, and click on layers for me. What you'll notice is that you'll see the red circle with a line on it. This is to indicate that we have kind of limitations built into the system to prevent the layer from appearing at certain zoom levels, mainly because it starts to become nonsensical when you're that far zoomed out. But as you zoom in, you'll see that these will start to change as you get closer to an area that would be able to turn that on. You can see county and MLS area and Geo Market area turned on. The further you zoom in, the more layers activate. And then everything eventually activates. And the whole point is to keep you from being overwhelmed with information on the map at one time. If I showed you what the school boundaries looked like at the regional level that Maryland had, it just looks like a line race, like someone had made a big Etch-a-Sketch and just shook it up on the screen because those boundaries are so small.
Bowl of spilled spaghetti.
Even better, even better.
It's a mess. All right.
And now we broke it.
Now we broke it, but wait. All right. All right. So let me just see. One last call here. Again, I have covered all of the basics that I wanted to in this, plus a little extra bells and whistles in terms of the mapping pages. And again, Matrix may be wanting me to take a nap anyway. So we'll see. Unless y'all have some questions for me, some other things that you'd like me to add on to this presentation today, I can go ahead and begin to wrap things up. I do want to take you back just briefly to my PowerPoint, if it'll let me do that. Technology is grand. It works.
I think we messed too much with it.
Yeah. And I have two tabs open. All right. So again, here's the flow. Remember, we created the search, saved the search, concierge or no concierge, and then off it went, and you could go back and manage those at any point as well. Again, I'll include the PowerPoint in the email that I send. That'll have the recording in it. I broke PowerPoint too. There we go. Here is all my contact information. Again, if you need that, you are more than welcome again to email or call. If I can be of assistance outside of this, please let me know. I'm glad to do that. I just shared a house with someone and it's not through auto email. Do we know if they have seen it? I don't know of any way to know that. Right. All right. Thank you all so much for being here today. And again, Nathan, for hopping in and sharing your wisdom, and keep an eye on the chat when I was trying to make Matrix go instead.
Thank you for including me. It's always a pleasure to watch and learn, because sometimes you forget things where you were where I'm in the system every day.
That's right. You're on bigger, deeper layers than we saw on that map, aren't you?
And we have more layers coming later this year.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, I will go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thank you again very much. Again, be on the lookout for an email. It'll take a couple of days, so just give it time. It's got to be rendered and edited and sent to our HARTV department to be posted. So just give us an opportunity to let the recording go through that flow, and then anyone who registered will get the link. So whether they were able to attend today, or if people that left early or popped in late or whatever, you'll all get the email. All right. Have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Bye-bye, y'all.